children.
And he's screaming and crying, and it's so tough to hear him.
In need of a big miracle.
If she doesn't get a liver, she will not survive.
Waiting for a life-saving surgery with time that they don't have. It's a roller coaster of emotions for those in desperate need of an organ transplant.
Fear that the call wouldn't come in time, but I was always hopeful.
Mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, all waiting for the gift of life.
Good evening, I'm Lisa Sylvester. 2 young children recently received liver transplants. When we first heard of Jamie, she was desperately waiting for a liver and only had a few months to live. A few weeks later, we met Lucas, whose swollen tummy meant he needed a direct liver donation. Their heartbreaking stories touched you and me, and that's when we decided we needed to take a closer look at the state of organ and tissue donations in Pennsylvania. There are 123,000 Americans right now on the organ and tissue donation waiting list. About 8,400 are right here in our state. Sadly, an average of 21 people die each day because the organs they need are not donated in time. Lucas's parents fought to keep him from becoming a statistic. Their social media movement to save Lucas on Facebook drew more than 16,000 followers, and recently what they were praying for, a donor. Little Lucas Goller is recovering at Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh after his life-saving surgery this month. His family posted these pictures on Facebook, pointing out the tubes he had following his operation and the large scar on his tummy. We first met the family in mid-June.
He's just so loving. So that's it's really tough. It's tough to see him suffer like this.
Lucas was born with a liver condition. His bile ducts do not operate properly, creating a painfully swollen belly.
His liver goes like all the way over here.
The only way to save his life was to get a liver transplant from a deceased person.
And it's just a waiting game until we can find a correct match for him.
Lucas's parents took to Facebook pleading for direct organ donation, and his parents posted this moving video on YouTube. 1,200 miles away in Nebraska, the parents of 3-year-old Olivia Swedberg got dire news in May. Their beautiful little daughter, the picture of health, would die of brain cancer. In her final weeks, they held a prom for her, dressed in princess blue. On January 30th, Olivia passed away.
Because as a mom, you feel the sorrow and her pain because you've been there before. You've been there like begging God not to take your kid.
The two families were connected through social media. Within hours, Olivia's liver was on its way to Pittsburgh.
We fear that if he had not received a donation within the next few weeks, that he would have died from his liver disease.
Jessica Goller is elated her son received the transplant, but also feels deep grief for the loss of Olivia.
Words can't really express the heartache, because you look at those pictures and you look into her eyes and it's like her soul is coming in.
For Olivia's mom, painful as it was to let her daughter go, believes this act of love was God's higher plan.
She's inspired more people in her life than most people will ever touch. So I truly believe that Olivia's purpose in life was to help others live on.
Little Olivia didn't just help Lucas. 4-year-old Angelo Giorno of Derry needed an intestine transplant, and her organs also saved his life. We caught up with him this week. His doctors say that he has recovered so well that he may be moved to the Ronald McDonald House by next week. A lot of you wanted to help Lucas, and there's a way that you can still honor him. You can run one for Lucas at this month's GNC Live Well Liberty Mile. The race organizer has a very personal reason in wanting to help raise organ donation awareness.
I have a niece who has a heart transplant, so it really hit home, and I thought, you know what, we could do something really, really great, and we could raise awareness for organ donation using this event to do it. So let's devote heat to Lucas.
Runners can dedicate their mile to Lucas. We have a link to the race registration on our website, WPXI.com. Be sure to choose Run One for Lucas as your event. The Liberty Mile is in Pittsburgh on July 31st. And as you heard, Patrice Matamoros says she is inspired by her niece. Her niece Gianna received a heart transplant in 1992. Channel 11's Brittany McGraw learned how Gianna is sharing that experience through art.
These are works of art.
It started out as
just something to distract me.
Truly inspired from the heart.
I do paper cutting sculpture that's rooted in my experiences as a transplant patient.
A heart transplant that award-winning artist Gianna Paniagua got when she was just 14 months old.
I was in heart failure, and there was no other treatment for it except for transplant.
It's a difficult time because, there's not much that you can do, and as a parent, you do everything you can to keep your child, healthy and safe.
Gianna waited 6 weeks for a heart. Her mom says she'll never forget the moment Gianna's doctors shared they had a heart that would be a perfect match.
After her surgery, it was like a different child. She was within 24 hours sitting up in bed in the crib and eating.
Life post-transplant surgery has meant regular doctor's visits, a medication routine, and coping with the immunosuppression to keep her body from rejecting the transplant.
I can't go into larger crowds. If I go onto an airplane, I have to put on a mask. It's making sure to wash your hands, to go into clean areas. You can't drink tap water.
Both Gianna and her mom agree it takes an incredible amount of selflessness to be an organ donor.
They're taking a tragedy and helping others, save others' lives, and it's really comforting to know that.
In October, Gianna will celebrate 23 years since her transplant surgery.
I plan on having a party.
And her family hopes by sharing Gianna's story, it can help others better understand how organ donation is an incredible gift of life. In Regent Square, I'm Brittany McGraw, Channel 11 News.
Signing up to be an organ and tissue donor takes just a few seconds. We have a link to the DMV's online organ designation form, or you can go to a photo license center and have organ donor designated on your ID. Both services are free. You also want to make sure your loved ones, doctor, and clergy know you want to donate your organs. Well, donors come in all shapes, sizes, genders, and ethnicity, but sometimes you don't have to look too far for help.
They said I was a perfect match. We were identical twins on the inside.
A sister sacrificed to help save her big brother, and the message they have for you next on The Gift of Life. A family's bond, a brother and sister connected by a life-saving surgery. John DeCenci is our co-worker here at WPXI. He has received 2 kidneys from family members, one from his dad when he was just a child, and one recently from his sister. Channel 11's Joe Arena talked with them about their family bond and the message they have for people who may be on the fence about donating.
John DeCenci is back at work in the graphics department of Channel 11. He had to take 2.5 months off recently after facing his second life-altering diagnosis. When he was just 9, John received his first kidney transplant, a donation from his late father, Tony, also a former Channel 11 employee.
Was young enough to not really know what was going on, I was like, oh, why do I keep going to all the hospitals and getting blood tests, but...
At the time, John was one of the first kidney transplant recipients in the city. The organ held up until just a few months ago, and John got put on the national waiting list.
It's very long. It could take years, depending on how matched you are.
But just like last time, his family stepped in. His younger sister, Gina, turned out to be the perfect match this time.
I want my brother to have a normal, happy life. I didn't want to see him on dialysis. I didn't want to see him suffering at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it was a no-brainer for me.
Their sibling bond, so strong as children, strengthened even more now with a life-saving surgery. And this experience has also bolstered Gina's belief in what one person can actually do for another.
Don't be afraid that you're saving someone's life, and it's the best gift you can give someone.
What she did is just, what my dad did.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
It's got a good family, Joe. That's all I can say. God bless my family.
In Summer Hill, Joe Arena, Channel 11 News.
Most living donors are often close relatives of the recipient, like Gina and John, and this is called a directed donation. But you can also be an altruistic or non-directed donor, where you don't name a specific person. To start the process, contact the local transplant center staff or CORE, our area's organ procurement center. We have links to those on our website. Well, you have heard the story of Lucas, and now we're going to introduce you to the man who saved a little girl's life with an organ donation.
My mentality has always been, if someone needs something more than I do, if it's be about possession, money, just someone to talk to, I'm there.
We checked in to see how Jamie and her donor are doing a few weeks after a life-saving transplant on The Gift of Life, next.
Really emotional about it, but it kind of validates everything you've done. You know you did the right thing at the right time, and it gives me a good feeling inside.
A life-saving gift from a stranger for a little girl in foster care. The gift of life coming from someone who just happened to be scrolling through Facebook. David Dinovchek stepped up to save little Jamie recently with part of his liver. So he checked back in to see how both of them are doing a few weeks later.
These are the pictures that we've seen of 4-year-old Jamie, her eyes yellow and jaundiced. The tiny foster child suffered from a rare liver condition and would have died without a donation from David Dinovchek, a man who has never met Jamie.
I saw a picture of her face. It was this cute little girl, and she just caught my attention because it was an adorable little girl, these cute little cherub cheeks.
David only had about 50 friends on Facebook, but somehow her story reached his Facebook feed.
I thought, if there is anything I can do to give her that little bit of normalcy or any shot at a normal life, let's do it.
He met the criteria, and the staff at Children's Hospital thought he was the perfect candidate, given his body type and his lifestyle of healthy living. In late May, doctors performed a 14-hour surgery.
She was in a life-threatening condition. Without the transplant, she would have died within a few weeks, we believe.
Jamie's doctor tells us that she's making progress. She's now breathing on her own, and they hope to transfer her out of ICU in a few days. As for David,
right there, that's where they took it.
He showed us his scar. His recovery has been better than expected. He is sore, but he has his energy back.
You can't give somebody any other greater gift than what you've done for her.
It's hard to wrap your mind around because, it's you. Inside that part of you, it's living in somebody else. I mean, it's your DNA, it's your tissue. As much as they're using it, it's always going to be a piece of you. So it's odd to think about that, but at the same time, it does really make you very humble about life and how precious it is, and how just such a little thing you can give, like a little 25% piece of yourself, can really just change somebody's life.
David hopes to meet Jamie, but he wants it to be on her terms if and when she's ready. Now, when you sign up to be an organ donor, you can save up to 8 lives, as many as 50 lives if you donate tissue. The Center for Organ Recovery and Education plays a key role, and Channel 11's Joe Arena shows us what happens inside this organ procurement center in O'Hara Township.
Thank you for calling CORE. How can I help you?
Every day, the workers here at the Center for Organ Recovery and Education field 75 calls from hospitals about potential donors, but that's still not enough.
This is a healthcare crisis. People are dying.
Misty Enos is the Director of Professional Services and Community Outreach at the Organ Procurement Center. They work with donor families and 155 hospitals in Western Pennsylvania and West Virginia to deliver the gift of life. She gets inspired by people like Olivia's mom and hopes others will be too. Olivia donated her organs to Lucas and Angelo.
Her daughter's legacy lives on. She was able to save others. She's a hero, and she knows that her life was not in vain, that she was here for a purpose.
Misty took Channel 11 on a tour of the facility in O'Hara Township. She started at the eye bank, where staff screened donated corneas. Last year, they helped in 700 cornea transplants. And in the research lab, they test every donor's blood.
We actually bring their blood back here to CORE to test for viruses, communicable diseases like hepatitis, HIV, to make sure that the organs are safe and suitable for transplant.
CORE even has its own ICU and operating room where they're able to recover organs and transport them to patients. But perhaps the most poignant work happens here, the bereavement room for donor families. The park-like area outside CORE honors each CORE donor and the second chance at life they have given to others.
The fact that their loved one's legacy can live on, that this doesn't have to be the end of the book, this can be the new chapter.
In O'Hara Township, Joe Arena, Channel 11 News.
By the time this show ends, 3 new people will have been added to the National Organ Donor Waiting List. But every statistic represents a person, a mom, someone's dad, brother, or sister, or child. Channel 11's Brittany McGraw introduces us to a South Hills grandfather who is waiting for a new heart.
Alarm acknowledged. It's a sound AJ Caliendo and his wife Liz hear 4 times a day, every day.
8 a.m., 11 a.m., 8 p.m., 11 p.m.
It's a reminder for AJ to take the almost 24 pills that he needs.
And if the times are messed up or he misses it, it could actually have a significant effect.
And also a constant reminder of the process AJ is going through to get a heart transplant.
They tell you when they list you, this is a full-time job, and it really is.
It was 16 years ago when AJ had a life-changing health emergency. His heart stopped.
The next thing I remember is waking up about 26 hours later and people telling me you had what is called sudden cardiac death, which is not something a person wants to hear.
Since then, his heart function has gotten worse.
They have always, from the beginning, said there may be a time we have to talk heart transplant.
And in October of last year, doctors listed AJ for a heart.
I am so grateful for everything that it has enabled us to get up to this point.
He says it's his wife Liz, his family, and his grandchildren that he wants to be around for.
I want to see them graduate, get married, have professions.
And he says the key to more people getting the life-saving transplants they need is easy.
The answer is more people sign up to be organ donors. There's your solution.
Reporting in Bethel Park, I'm Brittany McGraw, Channel 11 News.
Pittsburgh is at the center of organ transplant advances.
Then we came to UPMC and they're like, yeah, we'll take you on. It's like, okay, we're not going anywhere else, we're staying here.
How the city's reputation helped bring the gift of life to a mom from Iowa. Next. Dr. Thomas Starzl is considered the father of modern transplantation, and he calls Pittsburgh his home. He worked at UPMC in Pitt for years before retiring. Dr. Starzl performed the first human liver transplant, and his work on surgeries and anti-rejection medicines provide a lasting legacy to this very day. Pittsburgh's role as a leader in transplantation is one of the main reasons a mom chose to relocate her family from Iowa. Marla Moore needed a double lung transplant, and it was here where her long wait finally came to an end. Channel 11's Catherine Amenta caught up with Marla after her life-changing surgery.
Here, throw it here.
Hey! Oh, good job, Lissa. They got mommy back.
Marla Moore doesn't take this for granted. Playing outside with her family, breathing in the morning summer air.
Nice, Mom.
She's battled cystic fibrosis her entire life. The lung condition usually forces patients into a double lung transplant. And earlier this year, time was ticking for the 32-year-old.
Oh, almost. The best way to describe it, put a straw in your mouth and breathe through it for a minute.
Then, to make matters worse, the CF caused a severe bacterial infection in her liver. Doctors at home in Iowa told her it's not realistic to do a liver and a lung transplant.
When St. Louis denied me after my Iowa team did, I was like, okay, you know, then we came to UPMC and they're like, yeah, we'll take you on.
It's one of the most complicated operations and coordination of events that we do.
Dr. Jonathan DeCuna and Marla's team at UPMC Presby were able to clear up the infection with a new medication and save her liver. Suddenly, Marla found herself on a lung transplant list. She and her family moved to Pittsburgh, so if and when the call came, they'd be ready.
She had that look on her face like, I can't believe this is actually happening.
Do you have a bag packed already? Yeah.
It did happen, and in March, Marla got her new lungs and was breathing like she hadn't in years.
It was scary. Scary? Yeah, because I was so used to, for 3.5 years, just very short, shallow breaths.
I can't explain it. It's unbelievably rewarding, and it's why we went to medical school.
And it's why Marla can now look forward to a full life with her children, something that often brings her to tears.
Emotional.
In Pittsburgh, Catherine Amenta, Channel 11 News.
We know you'll have more questions, so we created an online resource center for you. And there you can find all of the links that you need to learn how to become an organ donor or a living donor right now and answers to some frequently asked questions. And if you're in need, we have links to help you get registered. And we're posting raw video from the stories we've shared with you tonight, stories that have touched all of our hearts. You can find all of that at WPXI.com. Thank you for joining us as we show you how Pittsburghers share the gift of life. I'm Lisa Sylvester. Good night.